You may not be aware, but you've been using muscle memory sheets for a long time. That's how you learned how to print and write cursive. These muscle memory sheets help to train your brain on how to move your hands. Do you think this line painter could have benefited from that? In all seriousness, the reason we use muscle memory sheets is to prevent you from having stitches that'll go all wonky like the line painter did, because your brain is trained into which direction it's going to go next, and that's what they're used for. It smooths out your quilting. Every time you have to stop and think for just a second gives you the opportunity to have a little wonkiness in your stitching. So use those muscle memory sheets. They really will help. I don't draw real well, so for me to sit and draw over and over and over, I know will help, but my favorite method of using these muscle memory sheets is this. I print out the sheet from the workbook and I add a piece of paper on each side of that so I have something to hold on to. And then this is what I do. So we're using the machine right now to practice this stitch. I have no thread in the top. I've got it unthreaded. And I have no thread in the bobbin. In fact, here's my bobbin and bobbin case. So we're basically just using the needle to act as a pencil while we practice this stitch. So just take your time, slow your machine down if you can, and let's begin stitching. And all you're going to do is just follow the dotted line. Okay, whew, got around that first hoop. Let's go ahead and take a break here. Now let's start back up the other side. Okay, we got past another curve. Now let's try it again. Now I find this more rewarding than drawing because I'm actually using my arms to move the paper just like I would if I were stitching. Let's try the last one now. So, there's our practice sheet. Not too bad. And we can continue on until we feel comfortable with the movement to make the curve. What you want to do is try to emphasize being curvy and not jaggy. So that's what you need to work with. If you really want to see how you did, turn your paper over to the back side. And now you don't see the dotted lines. All you see is your stitching. And it doesn't look as bad on the back side. So give yourself a pat on the back and keep practicing. Now some people like to use the muscle memory sheets by taking a pen and just tracing over the curves just like you would stitch them. Now if you draw these directly on your paper, of course once you get it drawn up, you're done. A nice way of doing it is this way. Place your page inside of a plastic page protector. And now, using a dry erasable marker, I've just created my own custom whiteboard, and I can trace over this, and when I get to the end, I can simply take a tissue and wipe it away and have at it again. So I can use this one sheet over and over and save another forest. Let's get your machine threaded up. Make sure to floss that thread inside your tension discs, and then also make sure you hit the take-up lever. Okay, we've practiced and practiced and practiced. Now we're ready to finally start stitching. Now, what do you need? Well, first of all, remember we need to put in a fresh needle. I personally like top stitching needles because remember that scarf we talked about in the back of the needle? They have a little bit longer scarf than a normal needle. That helps to prevent even more skip stitches. I also have, which comes standard on my machine, a single hole in my throat plate. Again, I'm going to prevent skip stitches with that single needle hole. I also want to start out with a full bobbin. There's nothing worse than starting to stitch and halfway through you run out of thread. So that'll get you off to a great start. Another thing that really helps is it's really hard sometimes to grip your fabric. Cotton is smooth and it's slippery. These gloves are very lightweight, and the nice thing about them is you can slip them on and off very easily, but only the fingertips are what we're talking about. The fingertips are rubber coated so that I don't have to worry about things slipping. For example, here's our test paper, and it just isn't going anywhere. I'm trying to push the finger, but it's just not moving. If I didn't have the gloves on, my finger would go right across it. So that's the nice thing about gloves. Now, a lot of people try to save money and go out and buy garden gloves and things like that because they're a lot cheaper. Machingers are probably the best known brand of gloves around. You also have Fawns and Porter and many other brands. These gloves look identical to the Machingers, but I found them on eBay for 99 cents a pair, free shipping. Can't beat that. The other nice thing it is very helpful is having a Supreme slider. Now, what is that? A lot of people hear about them, but don't know exactly what a Supreme slider is. Well, let's take a look at it. It's basically just a piece of silicone that is extremely slippery. And basically what you do is you put it down on your machine. You make sure that the hole where your needle penetrates is left open, and it actually sticks. So, I mean, it's not going to slide anywhere as you're stitching. Now, some people claim that after a while they're not very sticky. Well, that's because after a while you get buildup on the back of the mat. What I do, and I keep these in my sewing room all the time to wipe off my cutting mats and things like that, particularly for my Supreme slider. I take a baby wipe and just wipe it off. And that ends all the little threads and lint that gets on the back of this. and then it sticks just like it was brand new. Worth their weight in gold. Let's talk about batting for a minute before we put our quilt sandwich together. Do you know there's a right and wrong side of batting? This is a sample of Warm and Natural, which a lot of folks use. You can see on the left-hand side, it's very smooth and there's little surface definition or texture to it. The other side on the right shows that it's kind of bumpy. You can see like needle holes and there's specks of seeds and stems in it. That's actually the right side of the quilt and will be placed against the quilt top. Those bumpy needling holes are actually referred to as dimples in the quilting industry. Dimples always go up. Now here's a piece of Quilter's Dream polyester batting, and the needling holes are more pronounced on this. You can really see them. The other side is smoother, but you want to put the side with the holes, or the dimpled side, against your quilt top. The other side goes towards the back of your quilt. What you're seeing is the needling process that's being used when they attach the scrim, which makes the quilt batting stronger and loftier and prevents it from stretching. That's how they attach the scrim to the quilt batting. Now, a little tip that I'll offer you as far as the backing of your quilt, if you want it to glide easily, first starch your fabric. That makes it a little stiffer, and it also gives it a slicker surface, so it'll glide over everything. The next thing that you want to do is to baste. Now I use these clever little pins. All it is a safety pin with a cover over it. And I'll put the link for where you can get these covers if you're interested in the workbook. They're really nice because they save your fingers. And we're going to put the pin in, and this is called a quick clip. And the way this is used is there's grooves on the tip that holds the pin in place so that you can clip it. And we're going to go ahead and sandwich our quilt using our pins until we get most of it pinned. Now we want to pin around all the edges just to keep your backing from sliding and to get you into practice for basting. However, you can leave a portion about this wide unquilted because that will be your first row of quilting stitches, and you just have to take the pins back out again anyway. A rule of thumb when you're pin basting is you should be able to just have enough room to put your fist in between your pins. If you can put your foot in there, then you've got your pins way too far apart, and that allows your quilt backing the opportunity to shift on you. So it doesn't take this long to do your pin basting, so do yourself a favor and do it correctly. Now, it's not as critical on a piece this size because it's so easily managed. However, if you were doing a full-size quilt and you were yanking and pulling and shoving it, everything through your harp of your sewing machine, you can see how it's really critical that these pins are holding the whole sandwich together for you. Until next time, when we actually start stitching. See you then.